Hello everyone. Today our topic for discussion is electoral reforms in India. So my dear students, as we know that elections are most important and integral part of politics in the democratic system. A strong democracy can function only when the elections are free and fair manner without any manipulation. And we see that elections in India, they held under first past the post system. So elections in India held under the first past the post system. The first past the post system. So under this system, we see that the whole country is divided into constituencies. Whole country is divided into constituencies, and we see that the voters, they voted for a candidate under this system. So we see that elections, as we know that, they provides with peaceful transition of power from one form of government to another form of government. So we see that elections is a mechanism. What is elections? It's a mechanism by which we see that people can choose their representative. So election is a mechanism. We see that people can choose their representative. As we know that the part 15th of Indian Constitution from Article 324 to 329, it deals with elections, election commission and electoral reforms. As we know that election commission is a constitutional body which entrusted the responsibility of conducting free and fair elections. So we say that elections in India, they are generally free and fair, but this is not the true. This is not true for every constituency. And we see that there have been several challenges in free conduct of elections which demands reforms in the electoral system. So far, the major challenges in Indian, we see that major challenges in Indian electoral system is, as we know that major challenges in Indian electoral system is concerned. We see that, as we know that, it's generally accepted that while the first three general elections, they were held in free and fair manner. First three general elections were held free and fair manner, and we see that free and fair. After that, we see that the polemic of started during the fourth general election in 1967. So we see that in 1976, during fourth general election, we see that the corrupt and malpractices. It's generally believed that the corrupt and the malpractices were followed during the time of election. As we know that the major challenge in electoral system is that use of money power, use of muscle power. So the major challenges we are facing, the use of money power and muscle power. So use of money power, we see that political parties, they distributed money for what purpose? We see that use of black money for political rallies, ads and votes and cash for vote. They use it cash for what? Use it cash for vote. So use of money and muscle power. We see that so far muscle power is used to what? To influence election result. As we know that in 1990, we see that the Goswami committee on electoral system, electoral reforms पे कमेटी बनाई गई 1990 में. Goswami committee on electoral reforms submitted its report in 1990, and we see that it highlighted the crippling effect of money and muscle power in elections. So we can say that muscle power, money power, and also big challenge, we see that the criminalization of politics. So we see that the criminalization of politics, it's the candidates with criminal background, they try to hegemonize the tickets and electoral seats, and we see that criminalization of politics is a challenge, it's a big challenge for Indian democracy. Now criminals, people, we see the candidate with criminal background, they should not be allowed to contest elections. But we see that their entry in the system, it creates a chaos and confusion in the society as a whole. And we see that it's a very big threat, it's a very big bolt for Indian democracy. We see that the entry of the criminals in the electoral system, in the electoral process, and we see that now another major challenge we see that is a family lineage, especially in the distribution of seats to relatives, is a big challenge. It's a big challenge to the Indian democracy. So we see that, and also inadequate representation of women's inadequate representation in the electoral process. It's also a biggest challenge. We see it's a very important it's a very biggest challenge for Indian democracy. We see that the inadequate representation of women. So we see that the paid news, they were used, and we see that religion and caste were used. Religion and caste, it was used by whom? It was used by political parties. For what purpose? To gain support. Clear? And it motivated to vote. They motivated to vote on religious and caste lines. They motivated to vote on communities. They were motivated on religious and community lines. We see that the politicians, they are using religion as well as caste in order to gain the support, or we can say that to motivate to vote on religious lines. And we see the hate speech. As we know that hate speech, a sense of a severe form of what? A severe form of use of religion and caste is a hate speech. It's also used in false promises, and we see that the huge number of malpractices is followed at the time of elections in India. So it is now. We can say that it's a very so far the electoral reforms is concerned. Though there is a need to reform the electoral system. We see that there is a need to reform the electoral system to ban or to curb money and muscle power in election, and we say to regulate the functioning of political parties, ensure voter participation and voter awareness. So we see about the criminalization of politics is concerned. We see that the Vora Committee, it was set up in 1993. In 1993, Vora Committee on Vora Electoral Committee submitted its report, and we see that they highlighted the problems we see that in Indian electoral system because of the entry of the criminals, because of the criminalization of the politics. They highlighted. So we see that to enhance trust, there is a need to enhance trust in the eyes of citizens towards electoral process, and we see that to uphold the secrecy of the voters, and we see that this liquor sale is used. Sale of liquor is used for what? To gain support at the time of election. So these are the malpractices, corrupt practices. So electoral reform means to get rid, or we can say that to remove all these evil practices, malpractice and corrupt practice, and strengthen democracy. So main aim of electoral reform is to strengthen democracy. So democracy, it is possible only when we see that all these, the muscle power, the manpower, muscle power, and we see that the money power, muscle power, these things will be curbed. We see that will abolish, banned, clear, and we see that as we know that this religion and caste is a very important tool which was used by politicians, clear. So we see that freeing the election, so it's a need to free the election process from muscle and money power, clear. So this was all about the electoral reforms in India. So my dear students, वीडियो को देखने के साथ साथ चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें.